Good morning, gentlemen. We're back in the classroom here at Mayhem University. Now, a lot of what we're digging into this year is going to require you to have the courage to break out of your comfort zone and move to the next level of life. So today we're going to talk about leaving. Now, leaving is a part of life, and there are several departures that are necessary and even pleasant. When you graduate high school, for instance, you should leave. Seriously. Some of you are still hanging around, and that's just weird. But after high school, if you want to gain experience, you may choose an out-of-state college, a trade school, military service, and those departures are typically celebrated. Those phases, they're built into our culture, and it's already spelled out for you, which can sometimes make the less obvious transitions difficult to navigate. And that's what I really want to hammer this week. There's a right way and a wrong way to leave, and we want to focus on exiting from relationships and organizations in the best way possible. A botched transition leaves a lot of unsettled business. It can hinder progress, opens the door for irrational, immature, emotional decisions. And at the worst end of the spectrum, it can actually end with a digression into a previous life stage. So that first major departure for most of us is from high school, and it doesn't usually go as planned because it's not planned. Here's what's weird. Your high school planned the departure. They planned them every year. So many would-be college freshmen don't realize the summer before senior year is setting the stage for transition. It could be a marijuana joint, a young lady, or a packed social calendar that are blinding that 17-year-old from catching on that this is the last of a 13-year free ride on your parents' and in some cases the taxpayers' dime. A large block of high school seniors are scrambling to apply for colleges with the money they've been making on their jobs spent on, well, nothing. So it's college application fee versus prom, and wouldn't you know it, prom wins. The scholarship money has already been awarded to somebody with a plan. At graduation, the euphoria that should be in the air is swept away by anxiety from hearing the future plans of fellow classmates announced out loud. Last-minute applications to schools that you aren't sure about, rushed degree plans, college loan papers, signed without really thinking. Summer now is frantic as that young man works overtime to replace the wasted time and the cash of the previous misspent year, and he's moving into a dorm room at a school he's never visited on the absolute last day of freshman orientation. Whew. But hey, that happens every year. You can set your watch by it. Regardless of why you're departing, leaving typically happens in 4 phases. They're independent of your industry or fraternity. The first phase, conditions for departure are realized. Then an action or event is set as the cue to begin departure. Departure is announced, and then transition occurs. Let's look at those. So in step 1, you realize it's time to leave. When you finished your junior year of high school, that was the start of step 1. In phase 2, an action or an event sets the cue for departure. That return from spring break senior year leading up to graduation. Now you have a realistic post-graduation plan. If you're going to college, it's been decided and you have a pretty good idea of who's going to pay for it. In phase 3, the departure is announced. You're wearing a cap and a gown, people are shouting your name, and someone is reading off the name of that university, trade school, or military branch that's accepted you. In phase 4, you're gone. There's a send-off party, and you move into the next phase of life, career, industry, craft, or discipline. And now that's a perfect departure, of course. It doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the more difficult transitions. And we didn't bring you here to talk about high school, so let's pull back on that analogy and let's get into some of the imperfect departures that we'll face and try to follow the 4 phases if we can. When it's time to leave your company, you may not realize it at first. To be honest, by the time you're frustrated at a dead-end job, it's not your boss's fault anymore. The winds of change have been blowing. Take the hint before you begin feeling like our pupil from the lesson on working your land, passed over for promotion by a man nearly a decade younger. You will likely outgrow your position within 5 years and don't feel the need to use all 5 of them. When work gets too easy, you should already be focused on learning the responsibilities of the next level. If your job has no true next level, you should have known that within the first year and begun self-educating, taking night classes, or otherwise preparing for the inevitable. All of that is phase 1. Your phase 2 should be your resume getting a hit and having a positive interview. That's when you put your 2 weeks notice in, and when you arrive at the new job, you leave the frustrations of the old job behind. What usually happens, though, is you get pissed off for the 23rd time and you finally decide that you've had it here with no plan. You hastily prepare resumes that don't provide what employers are looking for. You bring your frustrations into interviews that you do get, so the companies that would have been willing to take a chance on you ultimately lose your phone number. You end up accepting as much or less money than you were paid before. And 2 months in, you're already starting to blame the new company for your situation. Now, even if that's not you, you know someone who fits the bill, and that name already came to you while I was thinking. Gentlemen, from another angle, when a relationship has run its course, trust me, one partner already knows it, and they've started planning. It's sad but true that people really do leave before they leave. You started musing quietly about your girlfriend's quirks that you used to find cute, and then when she's not around, you let it slip in your circle of friends that she's been getting on your nerves for a while. Maybe you've even shared some of that frustration with an attractive lady at work, just to get a woman's perspective. If this is you, shame on you. When something was wrong and there was time to address it, where were you? You've been racking up offenses, getting them off your chest with everyone but her, and saying, if that happens one more time, I'm out of here. So your phase 1 was executed in silence from her perspective, and your phase 2, 3, and 4 are just going to run in immediate succession. What a raw deal for your spouse or girlfriend. And for the truly immature, of course, there's that obligatory shaming on Facebook or Instagram and all the social circles. Everyone but her knew there was a problem before the breakup, and now she's going to find out publicly what you could have told her privately. In doomed relationships and dead-end jobs, we may give ourselves permission to rush through the phases of transition because we rationalize that those things weren't meant for us anyway. But what happens when it's a career move, or it's time to leave a ministry or a professional organization, or when life is transitioning to you running your own business? What I've observed is men who haven't been taught how to leave tend to follow the bad breakup model, even when leaving meaningful associations. So just as in that failing personal relationship, when a man doesn't value the organization, ministry, or affiliation, even the one that's been good to him, he leaves before he leaves. Is that you? Are you showing up late to meetings, skipping certain activities that you normally wouldn't have missed for the world? Have you started golfing with competitors, researching real estate listings in other cities? Are you starting to treat your leaders' idiosyncrasies now as character flaws, perhaps expressing discontent to others that you would normally reserve for that quiet place of candor with your boss? Now you don't bother to take up issues with the leader, preferring semi-private airing of your grievances with other staff or board members. Instead of telling the person or people who can fix the problem, you confide in a peer. If that happens again, I'm out. But you've already left. You have your next gig set up. Here's the thing. The final straw hits, you decide to leave. You say, screw the 2 weeks, screw everybody else. You're mad. In this industry that's taken your passion and helped you with mentors and coaches who drove you to success. This ministry that grabbed you at a low point in your life and helped you turn things around. This professional affiliation that helped you turn your vision into reality. Serving the community needs or developing programs to enrich those in your field of choice, they've been good to you. And at any rate, because of the mutual affection, they would have sent you off with a celebration. People move on. It is a natural part of life. And if you would have voiced your grievances to the right people, even if they weren't able to address them, the air would be clear and there would have been a mutual sense that the winds of change were present. But you're going to run off from this fraternity like a misguided, promiscuous man runs to the next affair, pretending there's no one else but already having your next engagement ring picked out. But this wasn't an entry-level job, was it? You were a pillar there, a fixture, one of the oak trees on the land. And when you just uproot yourself without warning, there's a huge hole to fill. The other mighty oaks are spread out all over the land, and it will take a decade before their branches can provide shade to the space that you were in, if ever. So other smaller trees, they try to sprout up to fill the space, but they've got years to grow. And so your company, your ministry, your association is left with a big mess. And then God forbid you leave quietly. You would think that a man who leaves wrong would keep some of the mystique, but no, it's not a secret. Every issue that he has taken with the previous organization now becomes justification for his sloppy departure. So when he's upset that the people who are left behind with the mess he made don't have the time to hear him out, he gets indignant and finds comfort in the other malcontents who left in their own emotional rush instead of working through their issues. And he doesn't realize it, but he's forming a clique of the disaffected that everyone else sees but him. licking those self-inflicted wounds in public, when all he needed to do was be honest with himself about where his life was taking him, right? Be honest with his leadership about how he felt, and do what most people do. Prepare a letter of resignation that honors the years of positive accomplishments and ensures that he'll always be welcome. And look, he can't just come back without pushing away those newly planted trees out of the way. The anger and bitter resentment created by a hasty departure is like a man trying to come back to his ex-girlfriend after getting a divorce from the woman he cheated on her with and then bringing 2 kids with him. That's just a big mess. But wait, there's a better way. Men, listen to me. Whether you're thinking about leaving, screwed up your last departure, or you're a leader who feels obligated to help someone else that you sense has a foot out the door, let's look at how we do this right. To the man who's thinking about leaving, have you already started looking for your next job, your next church, or your next relationship? If so, the first question that you have to answer, and look, you can lie to me all you want, just don't lie to yourself. But the first question is, am I offended? And if the answer is yes, then you're already behind. For starters, the Bible tells us to give honor where honor is due. So your boss or your pastor or your significant other deserves a respectful conversation about the state of the relationship well before your last straw. Now, Proverbs 12:16 says that fools show their annoyance at once, but the prudent overlook an insult. And that's cautioning us against outbursts and also helps us avoid getting offended just because offense is in vogue these days. But what I really like is what Jesus tells us in Matthew 5, starting in verse 23. He says, therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go your way. First, be reconciled to your brother and then come offer your gift. These instructions, they're practical. Look, you got offended by something. Wisdom says, take time to process it, attempt to overlook it. If you're still offended by it, before you try and make a show before God and before people, work on reconciliation. But if you've already started the I Hate the Fill in the Blank Club on Facebook or WhatsApp, Signal, Slack, or Tinder, your job just got harder. Proverbs 6:16 starts with a list of things that God detests, but we get to verse 19 for that last one, and it's one who sows discord among the brethren. The NIV translates that to a person who stirs up conflict in the community. So when things aren't going well and you rob your company, ministry, or spouse, heck, even the community sports team, the booster club, or PTA for that matter, but when you rob them of the opportunity to solve the problem at the lowest level by trashing them to anyone who'll listen, your behavior is detestable and it makes reconciliation more challenging. You see, at that point, pride steps in because remember, there's that circle you're venting in, that echo chamber of grievances, and their job is to egg you on. So you must willfully invoke humility to stop and say, wait, these are the scornful people from the first psalm that I'm commiserating with. What I need to do is approach my supervisor, my pastor, my coach, my wife, or my girlfriend. I need to let them know that there's some real issues. Apologize that because of my lack of discretion, they are likely to hear about it through other channels, and then genuinely seek reconciliation, even if that's a mutually agreed upon date of departure. Now, if you left a trail of broken promises, unfinished assignments, and angry clients on your way out, I would encourage you to work on revisiting the relationship at a later date with 2 specific outcomes in mind. First, now that some time has passed, you may have an open door to just say, hey, I was wrong. Remember, the place or person you left has also had some time to grow, so you may be surprised by the answer. And depending on how small your circles are, or how many children are involved, if it's a relationship, you may open the door to a new path forward based on a better allegiance to transparency. Second, you can learn a lot about the behaviors that contributed to the fallout so you can better assess your faults, but also look for triggers in future relationships that spell disaster for you, no matter the circumstance. And lastly, if none of this is you and you've been listening up to this point just to be polite and leave a positive comment, you're not going to leave empty-handed. There is someone in your life. It could be one of your employees or peers, a member of your congregation, a teammate, even a woman you're in a relationship with who is silently reaching their breaking point. And while you've been checking in and out of this video, they caught on to a sentence or two from earlier that they can really identify with. You see, if you are the well-adjusted man here, the team player who's level-headed, the approachable leader or pastor, or the transparent spouse, you may not have noticed that someone near you is just racking up offenses. Listen, something was said or left unsaid. Something was done or forgotten to be done. And because you score pretty high on the emotional intelligence scale, you don't bottle things up, it wouldn't occur to you to think that when they say everything is fine, or when they tell you that thing that seemed to bother them was no big deal, everything is not fine, and it was a big deal. All I can tell you is to keep creating spaces where healthy dialogue can occur, and even if it goes off the rails, when they finally do realize that you weren't the culprit, they will have distinct memories of an approachable boss, an emotionally available spouse, a leader who valued people over principle, or a teammate who always tried to pick them back up. And that relationship will be recoverable. Gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking time with me this week. I hope you got a lot out of this. If you found yourself in this lesson, do something about it before the bridges are burned. And if certain people came to mind as you listened, don't ignore the voice in your head telling you that they may need some coaxing to bring the offenses to the surface. And you just might be the man who can guide them through much needed reconciliation or even a healthy departure. That is all for this lesson. We will see you next time. God bless you.